This channel is for educational purposes only. Please do your own due diligence before making any investment decisions.
Hi, this is Joe Rabil, and we're going to go through something that I think is real important. It isn't talked about much in technical analysis circles, and it's called, and what I would refer to it as the magnitude of the move. How do we find the magnitude of a move? How big of a move we're going to make? Okay, and just to give you some history here, I spent years doing point and figure charts by hand. I would take them out at 4 o'clock every day and go through open, high, low, close, go fill in those charts, and gave me a real good feel for the market. Not only telling me what stocks were doing what, but just there's nothing better than doing hand charting. It's really a lost art. I don't know that a whole lot of people do it anymore, and I don't do it myself. But I'm going to tell you why in the transition from point and figure charts to this one chart that I use now that has taken over for point and figure, all right? Because the point and figure charts does this sideways jigsaw, right, to determine, and then you can do a count based on how big of a move you can expect, okay? I'm going to show you a different way to go about doing that now, all right? But before we get into that, let me just make mention, I am having a Black Friday sale. It is good all the way through December 1st. You can use the link in the description anytime between now and December 1st for the courses. It's all 3 courses in a bundle at a discount. All right, so take a look there. Also, if you do enjoy this content, please hit the like button and also subscribe. Okay, so I've got my standard 4-chart layout here with a monthly chart in the bottom left, a weekly in the bottom right, daily upper right, and then another weekly in the upper left. I like the weekly with the zigzag on it, and I love having the relative strength up here as well as having the RSIs to support what I'm looking at on both the MACD and ADX and the all 3 time frames. Now, as I said, point and figure charts would identify where we're building a sideways pattern and forming this massive base, okay? And then I used to do counts going sideways like this to figure out how big of a move we can expect, okay? So when I transitioned to my own business years ago, it was back in 2005 when I started Rabil Stock Research, I was trying to decide was going to use my firm's old program or was I going to try and find something new, and it was very difficult to find point and figure charts at that point. It just wasn't all that great. So what I ended up doing was trying without the point and figure chart. I added the monthly chart in to my sequence because I was using a weekly and a daily at that point. And then I started looking at the monthly. And when I started looking at the monthly, and then I did this for hundreds of charts. I would look at the monthly chart and I'd look at the feel that I got from what I was seeing. And then I would go look at the point and figure chart and I'm like, wow, this is identical. So what the monthly chart is doing for me is it replaces what I got from the point and figure chart. It tells me when I have some magnitude to expect. This is a massive base here sideways. All right, now I don't really do, as my subscribers know, I have a very specific way of forming targets for the year, all right, and how I go about using them. But you can look at some simple ways, which is the depth of the base. So if I look at this as the high end of the base, that's 50, the low end of the base is 30, then I can do a depth of base count and say that 70 is a pretty implied target, right? It doesn't mean it can't go farther than that, but based on the initial thrust out of this move, it could go up to the 70 mark. That would be what I would be looking for. All right. Now, if I'm just looking at this base and realizing I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 years of sideways action, 4.5, we'll call it, before it tried to break out, then I know this is probably a stock that if it works, it's going to go up for quite some time. It'll probably go up for a couple years, all right? As opposed to something that just has a 1-year base and it breaks out, doesn't mean that it can't go up, but the magnitude of the move will be different. Okay, the expected magnitude. So when I look at a stock like this, I expect more upside if it works. It doesn't mean there's a higher probability of it working. It just means that if it works, the move is likely to last longer. Okay, so we want to keep that in mind when we're going through, and I'm just showing you some of the names that I've been highlighting to my subscribers. If you look at this again started in the middle of 2021 and just broke out here at the end of 2025. We're talking about 5 years, 4 to 5 years of sideways action, and then we get a breakout. And it's pretty tight. You can really see it. I like looking at the swings for this as well, so you can see how tight the pattern is. And usually when it's tight like that, it's a more explosive potential move. Now, obviously, I look at the ADX and MACD and stuff like that to help determine the timing of it and all that. But I look at this price action to whittle down. If I'm looking to play longer term stocks that I want to buy and get in and stay in for quite some time, then I'm typically going to this monthly chart and trying to find stocks that have formed a big base. Okay, if they have a big base like this and have gone sideways for some time, then I'm going to go looking for an entry usually. All right, and as long as it meets all my criteria, I do want to see good momentum. I want to see certain aspects that I always look for. But again, I'm going to take it down to the names and try and find the ones that have this, what I would call real potential to the upside if they work. All right, so just keep that in mind when you're thinking about it. Like I think I'm putting myself in a position where, wow, if I can get half of these to work, and the ones that go up are going up quite some time. I get one to maybe go up and hit a target and then just fiddle away, and then a third that maybe takes a loss. It just kind of a failed breakout and it turns into a loss. I mean, I've got a really winning strategy at that point if I start building up the numbers. Okay, it's a numbers game. Trading is a numbers game. You're not going to go and pick out the one stock that's going to break out and keep going and going and make your life easy, right? It just won't happen like that. You're going to have to work your way through, recognize that sometimes the stock that doesn't look the best is the one that turns into the biggest winner. And sometimes the ones that look absolutely perfect are the ones that fail. Okay, so look at something like Keys. Again, look at another 4 to 5 year sideways consolidation pattern. It hasn't quite broken out yet, but I mean, it's one that I'm kind of watching. Say if this kind of kicks into gear and we start to see any type of none of the time frames have any ADX going yet, but if you can get ADX going in any of these time frames, it'll start with the daily. I like the volume pattern, but we would need this to kind of kick into gear. If that takes place, then I'm starting to think about the magnitude of the move, right? So we want to have that in our back pocket. Look at something like Rio. Look at how long this has gone on. You see how quiet this has been? And then it even undercut all of these lows and now has reversed back to the upside. So something to keep an eye on from that standpoint. Look at STE. So another one where you can look at the swings and you can see we had this one big swing from here to here and then down this way. And then all of these swings have basically stayed inside of that one swing since that time until it broke out. It's pretty wild. This was the high of the swing. This is the low of the swing. And everything stayed inside of that for that whole period. I really like to see stuff like that. I think that really improves your chances. I also like to see RSI buy signals kicking in as you're potentially starting to break out. Those are all good extra little things to be on the lookout for. The other thing that's important to me is when we're in an environment like this where there's higher volatility, we get a breakout. You do want to see a test like this. You see how it came back and tested the breakout area and then turned up and formed a higher low? That's important. Now, it doesn't guarantee that it's going to work, but it increases your odds that you've got a winning potential stock here. And again, if you have a stock that's been going sideways for 4 or 5 years and then breaks out, you've got this stored energy in place. With stored energy means now in order to unravel that, it usually takes a couple years sometimes if it's on a monthly chart. And if you get this on a weekly chart, you're probably talking about several months. But if you get it on a monthly, it can last years. So just something to be aware of. Again, if you looked at the point and figure, you should go back and look at all the point and figure charts. Stock Charts has point and figure. You can go and look at their point and figure charts and see the size of the bases that are forming on these stocks, right? Look at something like SU. SU is a little bit different because it's spread out. Right, you see how this has made a move up, and then it's come down, and now it's back up into this area. This last part has been tight, but it's not quite as good as some of these other names. However, because it's so strong relative to the rest of energy, I kind of view that as a positive. So I just wanted to highlight that from that standpoint. But it has some, a tight pattern at the end, but it doesn't have it all the way throughout. So just something to keep in mind. Look at Wynn Resorts. You can see now this is a reversal pattern rather than a sideways line. It was going downward, and now it's turning back to the upside. But we got a year or two of this sideways. It's about 3 years of a sideways quiet. Look at the low ADX where all three lines were below 25 for an extended period of time, probably about 4 years, right? And now we're starting to emerge out of this, and we're starting to see pretty good momentum out of the weekly. So these are the kinds of things we want to be on the lookout for, and we want to look at it from a standpoint of how big of a move can it make if it works. All right. Now, again, I want to I want to make sure you understand. It doesn't mean that it increases your odds it's going to work, but if it works, then the odds of it moving up for an extended period are pretty high, right? So we want to put ourselves in that position as much as possible. All right, let me know if you have any questions, and everybody I hope everyone had a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you next time.